Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining. Sunil here. Welcome to the session. Can you hear me? If yes, please type yes in the chat box as a confirmation. Thank you, Mallikarjuna. Thank you, Bagi. Thank you all for showing your interest in joining day 2 of Windows Server Administration course. Thank you very much. I hope you're excited. Sure, I'll do that, Gopi, no doubt. Thank you very much for your confirmations. Okay. What's the plan for today? What's the plan for today? To get into practicals of Windows Server training, we need to have minimum 2 missions. Okay. So we need to have minimum 2 missions. One should be a server mission, the other one should be a client mission. So for creating this kind of infrastructure, in our previous session, we have installed a tool called as VMware. In our previous session, so we have installed this tool called as VMware Workstation. I have provided the Google Drive link. Using that link, you can download this particular VMware software and install this VMware Workstation tool in your personal laptop or in desktop. Okay, perfect. Now, plan for today is to getting started with Windows Server creating, how to create a Windows Server mission. A very important term called roles. We'll learn how can we create roles, how can we install roles, what do you mean by the term called roles. If time permits, we'll get into the concept of Active Directory, which is a very important topic in particular, in the training. So you'll understand what is Active Directory. Promoting server to the domain controller. So these are two important points, very, very important points, but if time permits, we'll discuss these points as well. So this is our plan for today's session. Let's get started. Thank you very much. Before moving on, any questions on the concepts, what we have discussed in the previous session, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Perfect. Let's go on. To get into the practicals, we need to have minimum 2 missions, one server mission and a one client mission. There can be multi-client or there can be multiple client. I hope you have looked at the diagrams which we have referred in the previous session. Look at this image. It's all about client server architecture. Windows Server should able to manage client missions. We have learned in the previous session, a client missions are nothing but the machines which end user will use. It could be a laptop, it could be a desktop, or it could be a mobile phone. So these are all nothing but the client missions. To experience how the Windows Server will manage the clients, how exactly communication happens, how can we create infrastructure, manage infrastructure in a particular organization. So we need to have this client server architecture. So for this reason, we will be creating 1 minute. For this reason, we'll be creating one server mission today and one client mission. We should create 2 missions virtually, one server mission and client mission. To start with, let's go ahead and create a Windows Server mission in VirtualBox. Okay, look at the notes. I am creating a new virtual mission. I am creating a new virtual mission. Okay, to create a new virtual machine, before getting started, please make sure that you download the ISO file from the Google Drive link, which I have mentioned in this particular notes. As you said, I'll be using some notes in our day-to-day sessions. Along with the PPTs, you will also get the notes. You can use these notes for practice. This is a public URL. Anybody can download the ISO file using this particular URL. Let me show you. You're able to download the ISO file. Okay. So what is ISO file? I'll explain later. The first step, what you need to do is to download this ISO file. To save time, I already have downloaded the ISO file. Let me show you the ISO file which I have downloaded. It is available in my downloads folder. Can you see, my dear participants? This is the ISO file which I have downloaded. This ISO file helps you to create a Windows Server machine. The size of this ISO file is approximately 4.5 GB, 4.5 GB. So make sure you have a sufficient space in C drive or download, otherwise use E drive. So please download this ISO file. From where you have to download the ISO file? From the link which I mentioned in the notepad. Coming to your question, what is an ISO file? An ISO file, sometimes as referred as ISO image, is a digital copy of an optical disk. In good olden days, if you want to install a Windows machine, let's say for example, in olden days, if you want to install Windows XP, in the desktops, we used to have CD drives, right? So in the CD drive, we used to insert the disk. So this ISO file is nothing but the digital copy of the disk. Okay, so visualize that this is nothing but the disk. Okay, so here we have to upload the disk so that using this disk, the virtual machine gets created. So that's the reason. Please download the ISO file. So first keep the CD ready. So this is nothing but a image, disk image. So I have the ISO file ready with me. So as I have the Windows Server ISO file ready with me, you have to observe the steps which I'm doing now, and you have to follow the same steps after the session. As I told you, this is completely practical oriented training. Okay, so to maintain the interest, to maintain the curiosity in learning the subject, it is very important. It's your responsibility to practice whatever we are learning in our day-to-day session. I hope you already have installed VMware. If you have missed the day one, you can watch the day one in our YouTube channel, or you can also watch the day one using the link which is available in the WhatsApp group. Please watch the day one video. Please install VMware Workstation tool, which you already have done it. Now, today I'm starting with going ahead and creating a new virtual machine. Clearly documented. I have clearly documented the steps. Please follow the steps and proceed with the installation. Don't do it parallelly, because a lot of things you have to listen. There are few points which are very, very important. So don't do it parallelly along with me. Please do hands-on. Please do practicals after the session, not along with the session. Don't do it along with me, because there's some important points you need to focus. Okay, so please don't do it along with me. Please spend some time after the session to perform practicals. Let's go ahead and create a new virtual machine. Create new virtual machine. Open VMware Workstation. Go ahead and create a new virtual machine. Select custom. Take the default version. That's okay. I will install operating system later. That's what I have mentioned here. Follow the notes. I will install operating system later. Next. I want to install Microsoft Windows. Which version? You have a lot of versions available, but I want to install Microsoft Windows 2016. Select the right version. Next. Where do you want the virtual machine to be created? Where do you want the virtual machine to be created? Okay. I want to create a virtual machine in a new folder. So what I'm doing here, I create a new folder somewhere in my E drive. I don't want to create everything in C drive because it may have some limited space. Best recommendation to go to E drive. I create a new folder. That's what I have mentioned in the notes. I will create a new folder. The name of the folder is Server 2016. In this particular folder, I want to create a virtual machine. So I want to create a virtual machine in this particular location. Take a note of it and browse that particular location which you have just now created in E drive Server 2006. So make sure that this particular folder, I want the VM to be created. Next, select the default option, UEFI. You have to allocate hardware to your virtual machine. This is your actual machine. What is your actual machine? This is your actual machine. Windows 10. This is your actual machine. What is the hardware configuration of the actual machine? This is your hardware. That is nothing but a laptop or a desktop. It could be a laptop or desktop. In other words, it's a hardware layer. To run any hardware, we need an operating system. So the actual operating system which is running my laptop or desktop is actually the Windows 10. Am I right? Isn't it? So you can see here, this is actual machine is a Windows 10 machine. So in this Windows 10 machine, so what did I do? I have created a tool called as on top of Windows 10. This is your Windows 10. On top of Windows 10, I have created it to install a tool called as VMware. That's a virtualization tool. On top of Windows 10, I have installed a tool called as VMware, VMware Workstation. The advantage of VMware Workstation is on top of VMware Workstation, so I can create any virtual machines. So our plan is to create one Windows Server machine. This is what I plan. Okay, so to run this particular Windows Server machine, you have to allocate hardware. If your laptop is having 8 GB RAM, you have to allocate something like 4 GB RAM or 2 GB RAM. If your laptop is having 500 GB, you have to allocate 100 GB of hard drive to this particular virtual machine. If your laptop is coming with some n number of 2 process or 4 process, you need to allocate at least 2 process. So you need to run any virtual machine, we need hardware components. So we need to allocate the hardware components. Okay. So be careful when you're allocating the hardware component. If you have more hardware, let's say you have 16 GB of RAM, then you can happily allocate 4 GB. But if your laptop is only 8 GB RAM, then please allocate only 2 GB of RAM to this particular machine. So remember, whenever you're creating a virtual machine, we need to allocate hardware components. You need to allocate the RAM, you need to allocate the processor, you need to allocate the hard disk. So using the quota which we have allocated, this particular virtual machine will run. Let's go ahead and create a new virtual machine. Custom. I will install operating system layer. It is Windows Server 2016. I already have browsed it and selected the right folder, that is in E drive. Windows Server 2016, that's fine. Next. How many processors I want to allocate? I want to allocate one processor. How many cores per processor you want to allocate? I want to allocate 2 cores per processor. That's okay. How much RAM I want to allocate? I want to allocate. My actual machine is having 16 gigabyte RAM, so I'm allocating 4096 MB. That's nothing but 4 GB of RAM. I'm allocating 4 GB of RAM. Next. Okay. Make sure the network connection is bridge network. Make sure the network connection is bridge network. So when you use bridge network, it will use the network card of the actual physical machine. Next, take the default option. Next, take the default option. Next. Create a new virtual disk. How much hard disk you want to allocate to this virtual machine? So 60 GB is more than enough. I want to create a virtual disk in single file. Okay, the hard disk is nothing but a representation of single file. So make sure that the virtual disk is a single file. Okay, everything is documented. Okay, you will have these notes as a reference to practice. You will also have the recorded session as a reference. You know, every session is recorded. You will have access to the recordings when you're doing practice. So store it virtual disk as single file. Next, where should be a disk stored? The disk should be stored in the folder which we have created. We have created a folder in E drive, server 2016. So in this particular location, I want the disk to be created. VMDP is nothing but the virtual disk. Click on finish. Click on next. So just a quick recap of the options what we have selected. So we are creating a virtual machine of Windows Server 2016. The location of the virtual machine will be in E drive in this particular folder. The memory of that particular virtual machine, the RAM of the virtual machine is 4090, that is nothing but 4 GB. The hard drive will be of 60 GB, which is consisting of 2-core CPU, that's fine. And click on finish. You are done creating a virtual machine. Under this particular panel, under my computer, under the, can you see, you can see a view virtual machine gets created. Okay. Now, before powering on the virtual machine, you have to upload the ISO file. You have to link the ISO file. ISO file is nothing but the image which you have downloaded in the beginning of the session. Do you remember? I have started mentioning that you have to download the ISO file from this particular link. Where is this ISO file available? In my machine, the ISO file is available in my downloads folder. This is an ISO file. So you have to link the ISO file for the machine to get installed. So go to edit virtual machine settings. Go to CD or DVD. Use the ISO image. Browse. Where is the ISO image? It is available in my desktop, in my downloads folder. This is an ISO image. Click on open. Click on OK. Okay, so make sure that it takes the ISO file which is downloaded. And now as the ISO file you have linked it, now let's power on the VM. When you power on the VM, quick information, it will your cursor should be clicked on inside the VM and you have to press any T key to continue. Remember that. Power on the VM. Observe what I'm doing here. The moment you power on the VM, you have to take the cursor to the VM, click on the VM and then press any key to continue. Please observe. Power on the VM. VM is powering on. Keep your cursor, click on the cursor and press any key to continue. When you press any key, then only the files gets loaded. Now the Windows Server is in the process of installation. The operating system is installed in the hardware configurations which you have allocated. You have allocated 60 GB of hardware. You have allocated 4 GB of RAM. In that particular hardware components, the virtual machine is in the process of installation. Language is installed. Time and currency format. I want to use the India currency. English and India. The time and currency format is English and India. Click on next. Install now. Select it as KMS. When you select KMS, this is Windows Server activated version. It will not ask for license key. Select it as KMS. Accept the license terms. Custom. Take the default 60 GB you allocated, so it will show you the 60 GB. Just proceed. This will take some time for the Windows Server to get installed. That's what I have documented here. Power on the VM, keep your cursor on the VM, click on the VM, press any key to continue. The files gets loaded. I've selected the time and currency format and I click on install now. I've selected the KMS Windows Key Management System, custom, and installation starts. This will take, you have to hold on for approximately 10 minutes. So let's all wait for the machine to get installed. So I am anticipating this installation will take approximately 10 minutes. I'll be on mute. and I'll be waiting for the machine to get installed. Request you to please hold on for the installation to get completed. Thank you all for waiting. We are almost done. Now, once installation completed, it will ask to provide the password for the administrator user. Administrator is the default user for the Windows Server. We will experience it soon. Observe to keep, if you want the cursor to input to VM, so you need to use Control G, or you have to use Control R to manage the cursor. The default username, as just mentioned, the default username is administrator, and you need to provide the password for this particular administrator. The password which I want to provide is training at 123. Okay, so I have provided the password as training at 123, just for your reference. Okay, click on finish. We are done with the installation of Windows Server Virtual Machine. Please wait. Hold on. Yes. It takes some time. For the first time we are creating a virtual machine, it will take some time based on the hardware configuration we have provided. So you have to be very patient. Press Ctrl Alt Delete to unlock. We have an option, go to VM. There's an option called send Ctrl Alt Delete. Administrator is a username. We have provided the password, right? Training at 123. This is the password which we have provided at the time of installation. Yes, we are done with creating Windows Server Machine. We are done with creating Windows Server Machine. Please wait. still the machine is busy. Okay, server manager window gets opened automatically. Don't worry about this, just close it. Yes, the machine is successfully booted. So we are done with creating a Windows Server machine. This is the first milestone what we have achieved. It's always good practice to provide a name to every machine. It's always good practice to provide a name to the machine. Okay, so even your laptop, your desktop, you can also provide your own name. Okay, now I want to provide a name to this particular machine. I want to provide a name as training PC. I want to name the Windows machine which I have just now created. I want to name this particular Windows machine which I have just now created as training PC. So how to change the name? What is the default name? How to change the name? Okay, go to this PC, properties. Can you see here computer name? This is the default name. This is the default name, win-ogu. This is some default name. So I don't want to have this kind of computer name. I want to have a meaningful name, something like training PC. So how do you change the computer name? So under advanced system settings, there's an option called computer name tab. You can click on change button and change the computer name. That's very, very important. It's always good practice to change the computer name. So you can go to advanced system settings. You can go to advanced system settings, or you can also go to, let me repeat it, this PC, properties, advanced system settings. There's a tab called computer name. This is description. I don't want description. I want the computer name to be changed. So click on change to rename the computer. Click on change and provide the computer name as training PC. Click on OK. You must restart your computer to apply the changes. That's okay. And click on close. Do you want to restart? Yes, I want the computer name to be applied. This is very, very important. I want the computer name to be applied, so I'm restarting now. Unlock by sending Control-Alt-Delete. Password we have provided as training at 123. By default, server manager window will be popped up. Please observe. Always, the server manager window will be popped up. We'll discuss this later. Let me close this window. I want to check whether the computer name has been changed or not. Properties. The computer name is training PC. It has been successfully modified. Very, very important. So change the computer name. It's always good practice to provide a unique name to every computer. That's good. Okay, next. We are done with changing the computer name. Now, one more important observation. One more important observation. This PC, properties, as discussed, as observed, the computer name has been successfully changed. Coming to work group. What is work group? I will discuss later, but please observe the default work group is work group. What is work group? Sunil, what do you mean by default work group is work group? You will understand all these points later. This is just for your observation. The work group is work group. Okay, take a note of it. Okay. Now, every computer will have an IP address, right? IP address is used to uniquely identify every computer. Every computer will have an IP address. I want to know the IP address of this particular Windows Server machine. I want to know the IP address of this particular Windows Server machine. How do you identify the IP address? It's pretty simple. Open the command prompt, go to start, command prompt, use the command ipconfig. Use the command ipconfig. So you will have, this is the IP address, 192.168.29.214 is the IP address of this particular machine. This is just for information. Okay, now, so we are done with the installation of Windows Server machine. Okay, now, I want to discuss about the term called, role. Let's understand the term called role. Okay, look at this. Roles in Windows Server helps you to define how do you want to use the server. The server machine is ready now. My point is, how do you want to use the server? How do you want to use the server is dependent on the roles which you are installing. Server is ready, but how do you want to use the server is dependent on the roles. Okay, look at this. How the server is used. For example, you want the server to be used as file server. Do you want to use the server as print server? Do you want this particular server which you have just now created as web server? How do you want to use this server? It depends on the roles what you have installed. As per the business requirement, as per your infrastructure requirement, as per your organization requirement, as a Windows administrator, you need to install the roles by understanding the requirements. Okay, so how do you want to use the server is dependent on the roles what you have installed. If you want to use the server as web server, there are some specific roles. If you want to use it as a file server, there's some specific roles. If you want to use it for other purposes, there are a lot of purposes where you can use the Windows server. It all depends upon the roles what you want to install. Obviously, that next question that comes to your mind, Sunil, how to install roles? Where can we see the available roles? By default, we have just now installed the server. Does the server comes with a default role or something like that? Where can we see the roles? Under server manager. Have you observed whenever you start the Windows server machine, automatically a window gets populated called a server manager. Go to server manager, you can see the roles available. Go to server manager. Can you see here we have an option called server manager? Participants, can you see we have an option called server manager here? Okay, so I'm clicking on server manager. Server manager window pops up. This is server manager dashboard where you can see all the roles which are already installed. By default, every Windows server comes with one role. Can you see number of roles as one? Did we install this role? No, this is the default role. Which role is installed? The role name is file and storage services. This is the default role every Windows server will get. This is the default role every server will get it. Now tell me, did I install this role? No, I have not installed this role. This is the default role. So how do you want to use the server? It is dependent on the roles what we have installed. Okay, by default, every Windows Server machine comes with one role. As you can see, it is clearly observed. The role is file and storage services. That's the role name. Can we install additional roles? Yes, why not? Can we add roles to the server? Yes, you can see here. We have an option called add roles to server. So as you now know, roles will help to use the server as per the requirements. The next thing what we have to learn is how to install the roles. How to install the roles. Where are the available roles? Can we look at it? Yes, you can install the roles, no doubt on it. Okay. We have an option called under server manager. We have an option called add roles and features. You have an option called add roles or features, or you can go to manage Here also we have an option called add roles and features. Do you want to add roles? Yes, I want to add one more role. Right now, there's only one role in this server. I want to have additional role. I want to add a role. Click on add role. Click on next. Select the first option, role based, because you are planning to install a role on a specific single server. Okay. Other option we'll discuss later. Next. Where do you want to install the role? In which machine you want to install the role? Do you remember we have renamed the machine as training PC? That's the reason you are able to see the name. So naming the machine is very important. So you can easily understand, okay, I'm installing this particular role in this particular machine, and the IP address of the machine we already have verified from the command prompt. This is the IP address of the machine. Okay, so I want to install the role in this particular machine. Very good. Next. These are the roles available. Active Directory certificate services, domain services, federation services, DHCP server, DNS server, fax server, Hyper-V. Oh my God, remote desktop services, IIS. Lot of roles available. As per the requirement, use the role. For example, I want to install network policy and access services. This is the role I want to install. Don't worry what is network policy and access services. We are learning how to install the role if required. So I want to install the role called network policy and access services. Okay. So select the role. So I want to install network policy and access services. Select the checkbox. Just click on add features. So I have selected the role which I want. Click on next. Select one or more features related to this particular role. So I want to take the default features. Click on next. Click on next. Restart. It's always good practice to restart the machine once the role gets installed. Restart the destination server automatically if required. Yes. Do you want to allow the restarts? Yes, I want to allow the restarts, and click on install. I am installing the role. So we are learning how to install a role based on the requirements. So let me install the role. The role what we are installing is network policy and access services. Installation has been started on the machine, the training PC, which we have named it. Just takes a minute for the required role to be installed. Installation succeeded on the training PC. This is our machine name. This particular installation has been completed. Click on close. Okay, so we have added second role. Previously, have you observed the default role was 1. Now the number of roles has been changed to 2. Can you see the number of roles has been now changed to 2? The default role was file and storage server. The new role what we have just now, the new role what we have just now added is NPAS, network policy. That's what we have selected. That's what we have selected, network policy and access services. You can see that role here. So whenever you install the role, you can see that particular roles available here. Okay, just for your installation purpose. Okay, so this is how you have to install the roles. This is how you have to install the roles. Now in the server manager dashboard, yes, we can see 2 roles. One is the file and storage services. As observed, this is a default role, and this is a new role which we have just now learned. Can I add one more role? I want to add one more role. Which role I want to add? I want to add a role called as IIS, Internet Information Server, a web server role. I want to use the machine as a web server. If you want to use this machine as a web server, then you have to use this particular role, web server role. Okay, so let's learn one more role. Let's add one more role. What's there in it? Click on manage, add roles, click on next, click on next. I want to install the role in this machine. Very good. What role I want to install? Web server role I want to install. Select the machine. Okay, so I have selected the checkbox. Click on next, click on next, click on next, click on next. Take the default options. Click on install. This is the third role which I'm installing. Just takes a minute. The functionality of the server is dependent on a role which we are installing. Just takes a minute for the role to get installed. Done. Installation succeeded. Click on close. So how many roles? Now the number has been changed to 3. The number has been changed to 3. One was the default role, file and storage services. This one is just now which we have installed, IIS role, and NP, network policy, and access system. This is the third role. So how do you want to use the server is dependent on the roles what we have installed. Okay, clear about this? Perfect. So I want to know the IP address of this machine. I want to know the IP address. I think I already have discussed it. Whenever you want to know the IP address of a particular machine, so go to command prompt and run the command ipconfig. You can see the machine has been installed. This is the IP address of the machine. Okay. So what did we achieve today? So we have achieved installation of Windows Server to get into practicals. By default, Windows Server, how do you want to use it is dependent on the roles. You now know the importance of roles. Windows Server comes with one role. To understand to get hands on, we have installed a couple of more roles. We are now comfortable installing the roles. Active Directory we cannot start now. Active Directory is a time consuming process. We'll not start Active Directory now. The Active Directory session will be in the next session. Active Directory class will be in the next session. That is a tomorrow session. In tomorrow session, we learn one of the important service called as an Active Directory. What is Active Directory? I thought we can complete it today, but it will take some time. I cannot stop in between when I start the topic. Okay, so let's not start Active Directory. Okay, no, Active Directory session, we'll keep it for tomorrow session. Perfect. Clear? I'm sure you have enjoyed the session. Thank you very much for joining today. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow is also day 3. Tomorrow is also a demo session. Like how you have joined the demo using the Zoom link today. Using the same link will not change. Using the same link, the demo link is the same. Using the same link, you can join tomorrow as well. There is a WhatsApp group which we have created for this particular batch. I hope you are already in the WhatsApp group. If you're not in the WhatsApp group, please join the not WhatsApp group, it's a community. Please join the WhatsApp community exclusively created for this particular batch. I'm posting the WhatsApp community in the chat box now. Where is it? Just now I have posted the WhatsApp community link in the chat box to get the updates about this particular batch. Please join the WhatsApp community and get the updates related to training. The continuation of this session will be tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll get into the concept of Active Directory. What is Active Directory? What is domain controller? How to create a domain? So very, very interesting and important concepts for the session tomorrow at same time, 5:30 p.m. IST. Until then, signing off. Thank you very much. Have a good time. Bye, everybody.